wanted the best? You've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
I'm Chris Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the big show. We certainly appreciate you guys coming by. As always, the Chris Voss Show is man that loves you but doesn't judge you, at least not as harshly as your brother does, because he's always been jealous of you being the older, smarter, and better looking one. Wait, am I talking about my life? I am. It sucks to be my younger brother, but that's his problem, not mine. Anyway, he's a wonderful gentleman as well. No, I'm not. I'm just lying. No, I'm not. Maybe I am. I don't know. I don't even know where I'm going. This sounded funny in my head at first, but now it's going nowhere, and it's becoming sad and pathetic, like my brother. Anyway, guys, go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss. Chris Voss, one of the TikTok, all those crazy places on the internet. There's a lot of family abuse going on here on the show, David. Did you know this is the sort of show you were attending?
I had no idea. First of all, let's say one thing. I work in television production, and that opening in that intro was hysterical. It cracked me up. I was laughing until we came into this dual screen. That was incredible. Great production value. So
there you go. It goes downhill from here. So that was the high point. So I'm glad you enjoyed it, and it's just all downhill from here.
I'm going downhill. It's like slip.
There you go. You can hear we have an amazing young gentleman on the show. David Sahadi is on the show with us today. He's going to be talking about his new book that came out October 31st, 2023, called My Dad, My Dying Son, A True Story of Love and Legends. And we're going to get into his journey, his father's journey, and everything else. Did you have something to say there, David?
Nothing.
There you go. I just heard a little bit of sound that came through, and I'm like, I hope I got the right guy. How many David Sahadis are there running around the place?
2, I think, in the United States.
Oh, there you go. God, I'm jealous, man. It's so hard to have a name that everyone else is copying. So David is an award-winning creative director, producer, and writer who's directed nearly 1,000 television shows for Impact Wrestling, TNA Entertainment, and MLW Wrestling. He is best known for his work as a creative executive at WWE, where he conceived, wrote, and produced ambitious creative campaigns like the Attitude Era of professional wrestling that helped the WWE, a global entertainment phenomenon, become. He has directed over 300 national commercials, as which, 3 have aired in the Super Bowl. He's been awarded with 27 Promax Gold Medallion Awards, and he's also achieved creative experience in television that he's been awarded for, as well as a National Sports Emmy. Welcome to the show. How are you, David?
I'm doing well, Chris. And obviously you did some background check on me, so I think I'm in trouble right now, right off the bat.
There you go. You do owe some money from somebody from 1979, and it's like $50, and we're here to collect it. And we want to talk to you about your car's warranty as well.
Oh, jeez.
Welcome to the show. He's like, what the hell did I give him? I just wrote a book. Give me a break.
It's great. It's entertainment. That's what everything should be, entertainment.
That's true. And if it's not, well, then it's the Chris Voss Show. So, David, give us your .coms. Where can you find people on the interwebs?
I find people in life, not so much on .coms. What do you mean by .coms? I mean, I know.
So, do you have a website that you support the book with, or people can find out more about you?
It's not finished. It's called My Dad, My Son. The word "dying" is taken out of there. I had somebody who's running that for me, but she has some medical issues, and she's not able to do any work right now. But
okay,
I'll get that back up to speed eventually.
There you go. Any social media you want people to follow you on?
Instagram 3. David Sahadi 3 on Instagram.
There you go.
Sahadi 3.
There you go. So, welcome to the show. Give us a 30,000 overview of your book, My Dad, My Dying Son.
It is a combination of a love story between a father and a son and great sports history. And it's a unique format in the sense that it's alternating chapters. So the chapters that I write, 1, 3, 5, 7, the odd number chapters, are all about the time I brought him home from the hospital in 2020 after he suffered a severe brain trauma. They gave him an 8% chance of living and a 50% chance of getting his memory back. He was in the ICU and the other hospital for 7 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And it's linear and it's emotional. He makes a great comeback, and then a sudden demise in the end. So there's some great stories in there. Then the even numbered chapters, my father authored 31 books.
Yeah.
So the even numbered chapters are his books condensed to 8 to 10 pages a chapter, which was the hardest thing to do. So it's a combination of great sports moments, the love between a father and a son, and there's a thread throughout each chapter. For instance, chapter 1, when I bring him home, he had 1 minute of clarity where he knew where it was. And he, said, "David, thank you for bringing me home." We end that chapter with, "Together we were praying for a miracle." Chapter number 2, his words from a book he wrote, "The Miracle Miami." Chapter 3, I'll give you one more example. Chapter 3 is like, after 5 days home, I started playing Frank Sinatra songs, and he knew the lyrics. I knew there was a hope spot. Yes. Hope spot's what we say in wrestling for making a comeback. Chapter 4 was Frank Sinatra, Bruno Sammartino's real life manager. So Frank Sinatra is one of the many people that my dad met. I mean, just a plethora of celebrities. And Willie Mays, Marvin Hagler, Joe Namath, Len Dawson, Al Davis of the Raiders, Steve Cawthon, the jockey. He lived a wonderful life, but he didn't brag about it, which I love most about him. So, yeah, one thing I'd say about this book is that it's about my relationship with my father and myself, but it could be about any two people that love each other deeply, deeper than anything else. My dad meant everything to me. That's why the word son is spelled S-U-N, because he was my light, my God, and my mentor. But as we became older, he became my son, and I started taking care of him.
Wow.
I always felt love on a deep level, whether it's, male and a female in a marriage or a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, can relate to the story that I'm telling.
Wow. This is I'm looking over your father's books in his history and what books he wrote.
Yeah.
He wrote I've been a lifelong Raiders fan, and the first book I ever got was Ken Stabler and the Oakland Raiders from January 1st, 1978. Your father wrote that book, and I still have that book.
That's awesome. He also wrote a book called Domination. He wrote something. Here's a funny story you like. Al Davis used my father's sports writer to do alternative facts. They didn't call it that back then, but that's a political hot word today. And Al Davis would say, "No, I need a favor." And to call my father 007. I need to spread some news in the LA newspapers that I'm thinking of moving back to Oakland. See if I can get a here. So my dad would spread these things that was just Al Davis trying to mess with the media to get better deals for his team. And that happened multiple times. My dad and Al had such a great bond. Dad, he's deceased now, so I can say it. What part of the end zone was watered down in Oakland? What wasn't? So the Raiders knew where to run the ball without slipping, and the opponents did not. anything was game back then, right? It was.
Yeah, that sounds like Al Davis football. Yeah, Raider football.
I kind of miss that football. Just win, baby.
Just win, baby. Yeah, it's crazy. In fact, I don't know. Have you seen the Al Davis's son? He's dating that 26-year-old. Evidently, she's gonna have his baby, and I think he's like 70 or something. So good for him.
I'm about 60. I could probably date a 23-year-old too if I was a millionaire.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Everyone's doing it. Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, go for it. So your dad lived this wonderful life. Tell us about what it was like to grow up with him. Did you guys always have a great relationship? Father and son's relationships can be sometimes challenging or conflicted. What was it like growing up with him?
There was one year where it was tough because my brothers and sisters all knew that I was his favorite, and so did my mother, and they made me feel bad about that. But hey, it's like we all have our favorites, and that was the only tough time. But it was great growing up with him. He would take me to football games, many Jet games. He took me to the game where O.J. Simpson broke the 2,000-yard barrier rushing.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and here's a funny story, Chris. I'm in the press box with him. I was a little kid, and he goes on a pitch to the right. He goes, "He's got blockers, and OJ busted one for 40 yards down the field." And I'm like, "Wow, my dad's like a seer. He knows this stuff. He's incredible." Then he goes, "Son, stay here. I'm going to get you some beef bully. I know you're cold." So on the very next play, my dad's gone. Pitch to the same side. I say, "He's got blockers." He's tackled for a 3-yard loss. OJ Simpson. Much older writers out in the front row turn around and look at me like, kid, shut the F up, please.
You're trying to do what Dad does.
The game.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. But I mean, what a way to grow up though, right? In the press box, you're meeting the players. I mean, that must just seem like normal to you.
It did at first until I got older. And I'm like, wow, because I
Mhm.
went to 26 different Super Bowls with him.
Mhm.
And everywhere he went, it's like, Lou, come over here. I want to talk to you. Just with players, writers, owners, out
Mhm.
there, especially GMs. And I'm like, wow, I didn't realize my dad's a rock star. But he never acted like he was one. He
Yeah.
always had a great smile. He was always charming. They loved him for his personality,
Mhm.
not who he was. And that's how I learned how to be humble, but also how a smile and kind words can like energize the room. My dad energized the room for no other reason than he wanted to make people happy. So he never lived like he was this charm star, but he was in so many ways.
Mhm.
To ask him, what is his role? Author, celebrity, father. He would say, father, number one, not even close.
Wow. That
Yes.
is awesome.
Did everything for his children. He wrote published 4 monthly sports periodicals and wrote about 6 columns in each one of those. So he's writing 24 columns a month, which is incredible.
That's a lot of work.
It is, but he wanted his family. He had a bad start to his life.
Mhm.
Poor, oppressed, going days without eating. So he didn't want his kids to have that same life.
Oh, really?
He told me that story once. It's a kind of a heartbreaking story what he's been doing as he was growing up. As a
Mhm. So it really shaped him and had an effect on what he wanted for himself and his kids. And was that kind of that sort of you see a lot of that in the Depression era, sort of folks that came out of that era where they're really hardworking. They saw hard times and they're like, I'm not going to have experience that again.
Well, I saw with my dad because he passed last year at almost the age of 93.
Mhm.
And I just know that he only told me that story once because he didn't want to brag like I overcame stuff. It was a lesson that you can overcome anything that you want in life as long as you
Yeah.
put mindset to it and have a positive attitude about that.
Mhm.
But the first image of his father, I said I'll tell you that it was tough, was when my dad was about 3 or 4 and the police busted down the door of their house and
Oh,
beat
wow.
him with batons because he was making bathtub gin during Prohibition.
Oh, wow.
And then my grandmother would have to go out and, after 1 week's worth of food dissipated, beg the
Wow.
neighbors for food. So my dad would go days without eating. Again,
Wow.
he only told me that story once. Only to tell me that, son, you can overcome anything.
Wow.
And here's one great piece of advice he always told us, Chris. Whenever one of his kids called and had a problem or was disturbed about something, he would listen. He was a great listener.
Mhm.
And when we were done, he would say, is it a matter of life or death? No. And he goes, let it go. Son, let it go. It's that simple.
Where did he get this from? Where did he develop this character from? Was there any sort of influences that helped shape that? Because sometimes when you grow up in a rough household, you kind of become rough yourself, and it sounds like I don't know. Maybe was there anybody who influenced them or gave him that viewpoint to blueprint off of?
Yes, himself. He, like myself, we're just genuine people. It's why like
Hmm.
2% of us that really have genuine hearts and really care and don't just say things that people want to hear. My dad, like I, generally cares about people. So it came from within. He learned it from himself. You have the gift of it inside his heart. So that's the best answer I can give.
There you go. Well, there was a lot of stuff. My relationship with my father was pretty contentious, and I learned a lot from him by what I call antithesis. So lessons by antithesis.
Yes.
So some of the ways he did things, I made rules to do things the opposite way. And so he was a good man. He was trying to do his best, as most parents are trying to do. And so I've forgiven him. But we struggled through our life of how it was. I mean, at 55, he was working for me for my companies. And it was weird when people would come in and be like, "Your dad works for you?" Wait, this is kind of weird. So there you go. But you had this. So he raised you guys right. It sounds like he set a good standard for himself. He built his character. What made him want to get into sports and writing about sports?
First of all, he raised his kids right, but my older brother and my sister, have some disdain for him. So that's just how it is with any family.
Yeah. Sounds like you have the same issues I do.
How about you and your father? That's me and my mother. We still
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yes. So what was your question? I'm sorry. that went
my
off.
question was, what got your father into sports writing and into sports? What tuned him into that?
Marshall University, and I'm not sure how, but there
Mhm.
he studied journalism. And then he started writing for the Huntington Dispatch locally in Huntington, West Virginia. And then he became national writing articles.
Wow,
He wrote that first book, Long Past, about Joe Namath and the Jets beating the Colts in the Super Bowl. And
Joe
it
Namath.
took off from there. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I got to
grew
tell
up.
you a story about that too if you want to hear it.
Yes, please.
Okay, so Joe Namath was friends with my dad during that season.
Mhm.
And a lot of the nightlife stuff was embellished, obviously, because Joe was kind of like a professional wrestler in football before they had professional wrestlers that were characters. And my dad was the only sports writer that was allowed on the field because he was friends with
Wow.
Joe. So one time in the third quarter, Namath hurts his hand by hitting the helmet of Mike Curtis.
Oh.
It was second down. Now it's third down. He comes out. They send him the backup quarterback, Dave Briley. The
Mhm.
entire team of coaches are on the sidelines if they convert that third down.
Mhm.
Namath goes, Lou, I got to work this out. Go down the 15 yards. And he fires a bullet. My dad catches it. And that knocked the wind out of him. And he was able to loft it back. And he fired 5 more. And my dad caught each one because he knew it was the Super Bowl.
Wow.
The press box, 2 famous writers. One was called Paul Zimmerman. He had binoculars. The other one was Dick Young. Dick Young asked Paul, how does Namath look? And he says, he can't be doing too well because Sahadi hasn't dropped one yet. Little do they know the pain he was in catching those. And
Wow.
sent over the backup wide receiver, Harvey Nahum, I think his name was, to replace my dad. First pass, he dropped, and the crowd booed. So that was
Oh
my
no.
moment of fame, as he said.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And so, how long did his career last in that?
It lasted, believe it or not, Chris, he had this horrific brain trauma and fall. It took him 8 months to recover, be fully functional. He
Mhm.
wrote another book, a non-sports book, Murder in the Midlands,
Mhm.
before cancer took him down. It was more of the treatment of cancer than it
Mhm.
was the cancer itself. It was slow growing, but my dad likes to take everything head on.
Mhm.
He likes challenges, and I think treatment is what killed him at age 92 and a half.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, he was 92 and a half, did you say?
Yes.
That's a great, that's pretty good run for a life.
Yes. Perspective on that, Chris.
Yeah.
I cut you off, but on a month and a half ago, on the anniversary of his death, the first one,
Mhm.
my sisters and I were both upset. We were crying.
Mm.
And my young brother called and said, David, instead of crying that he's gone, why not just be happy that we had him for 92 and a half years? We're luckier than most. And I said, John, you completely changed my entire perspective. Thank you for that. So
Yeah.
now I'm blessed that I had him for so long. And I look back and I still play his voice messages every now and then, and it's no longer sad. It makes me happy.
There you go.
Yes.
Yeah. Don't be sad that it ended. Be happy that it happened. I
You said
guess.
perfect. Thank
Yeah. Someone said that to me recently. I'm a big fan of Rush and Neil Peart, and I'm still trying to get over the fact they don't tour anymore. And so somebody said that to me just a couple days ago, and I was like, you got a point, but maybe I'll be happy while I cry.
you.
So there you go. So the book is basically a homage to your father. Now there's a little bit of you in here. I mean, you've had a successful career, and stuff. Tell us about your career that you had that kind of, I think, followed a similar sort of reporting or producing sort of thing, like just like your father.
It did. And let me start by saying this is something I ask anybody that's 22, 23, 24 who does not I know what they want to do in life. I say, I know what you should do. And they said, how do you know? I said, find a passion you like, whether it's writing, whether it's outdoors, whether it's traveling, an entry-level job in that field, and you'll ascend really fast because you love what you're doing. So my dad, after I graduated college for a year with a math major, I don't know why, Chris, maybe you can figure that out for me, but I had a math major and nothing at all I liked about math, and I was good at it. I
Mhm.
cleaned houses for a year. My dad got me a job at NBC Sports.
Oh wow.
2 things I love, sports
Mhm.
and television. And I'm like, wow, what a dream job. And since I liked what I was doing, I excelled real fast. In 2 years, I became the head of on-air promotions for NBC Sports. And then 2 years later, I became the creative director for the WWF, now the WWE.
Mhm.
Because I loved what I was doing, I had passion. I had
Mhm.
creativity, I was telling stories. And it never felt like work. It was
Mhm.
just fun to go into work and do that stuff because it wasn't work, it was play. It's
Yeah.
creation. So my dad influenced me there, but he never pushed me. And that's one thing I liked about it. He wasn't saying, son, you have to do this or you have to do that. He gently guided me and
Mhm.
knew where I needed to go. And he was right.
There you go. You're right. If you love something, and it sounds like your dad set a good blueprint for you. I mean, that's what fathers do is they set a good blueprint to the kids of being a good man, of being someone who's a leader, and being have the healthy balance of character and
Yeah.
stuff. My dad probably could have used to be raised by your dad, but he was
I
trying, he was trying the best he could.
don't know.
Um,
I don't know your dad, so it might not have worked.
Might not have worked. My dad was pretty stubborn and narcissistic, but he was a good man. He was just trying.
Because what I want to say on that note, there comes a time when like the son becomes greater than the father, when like
Mhm.
starting to ascend, the other one's starting to ascend.
Mhm.
Happened with Willie Mays and his dad, and Willie Mays knew that moment. And when my dad's career was starting to go, not as common anymore. He was getting older. He was just in the late '90s and early 2000s. My job was ascending, and he told me that I was more famous than him. Like, Dad was famous in different ways, but he was never jealous.
Hmm.
Never anyways. He was so proud. He bragged about me. He never bragged about himself to the people. He bragged about me. My
Mhm.
son won these many awards. My son's working for WBE. He's done this. He's done that. And I mean, what a gift! What
Yeah.
a wonderful trait for father to have, to not get jealous or be happy.
Yeah.
Son at that time was more popular and in the news than he was.
There you go.
Yes.
It's interesting the father and son relationships we have and how the whole arc of it balances out. I mean, I've thought of my father since his passing over the years, and I think at this point, I wish I could go back and say, "Hey, I'm sorry, Dad. I should have given you more credit for all the shit you did because you're trying your best, and you're probably a much stronger man than I was in the whole of it." But it's interesting the impact that they have on us.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and how they shape us, and then like you said, there's that competitive nature. I mean, I wanted to be more successful than my father, not to not to beat him at anything, but just to show him that I became something of myself. I did something, and I wanted him to be proud of me. And sometimes some dads it's tougher to get that out of than others.
Did
And
he give
so,
you that voice that you have?
what's that?
Did he give you the voice that you have? Because if I had that voice, I could do announcer work or have my own podcast.
Maybe it was my father who gave me that. He definitely gave me my body parts, which probably contribute to my voice. I have his huge hands, and he used to have custom feet, custom shoes he needed to have for 13 to 14-inch feet. So maybe the voice is. Yeah, I think he did have a powerful voice. So, yeah, maybe I'm gonna have to think about that,
It was
David.
more of a flattery of you than it was of your father. You have to
Yeah, yeah.
because I deal with announcers all the time.
He was better looking than I was, so I think my mom gave me my radio face. Wait, that didn't work out well. I don't know what that. My mom's lovely.
Whoever's watching, I'm sorry, I'm
Uh,
laughing. Like even before we started the conversation.
she's already cut me out of the will. But yeah, what this whole show is about my family. What the fuck happened? It's a family show. We're talking about family, folks. That's what's important.
I
So
haven't had a drink yet today, and you're making me laugh hysterically.
that's what we try and do here. Because if you see my family, you'll laugh. No, I'm just kidding. Wow. Now there's one great story you have about meeting Cassius Clay.
Oh my gosh! Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that, because you're
He
8 years old. Holy
there
crap!
when he beat Sonny Liston on that photo.
Wow.
I got from my dad's house. I met Cassius Clay through my dad. He was interviewing him for a fight, and it was at the Fontainebleau Hotel in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like 6 or 7. I was very young, and he came in the room. He's all dressed up nice, and he was very humble in real life. When the cameras went on, he became this character, this larger-than-life superstar. Jump like a butterfly, sting like a bee. I know I messed up that line, but you know what I'm talking about. But in real life, he was so calm, so soft, so gentle, so soft-spoken.
Mm-hmm.
He impressed me. He wanted me to sit down beside him on the couch for 2 hours when my dad did an interview with him. And then on the airplane ride the next day, he was in first class, and he grabbed me and put me on his lap. And when the flight attendant said it's time to go back to his seat, he says, no, he's going to fly back to the champ right now. And it's just like, wow. I mean, my dad knows this guy, and I guess he's kind of famous because he's got this championship belt, but I really don't know who he
He's
is.
kind of famous.
And so my dad's back there in coach, and I'm flying back home because it was a lot more lax back in those days in
Yeah.
first class with Cassius Clay / Muhammad
Wow.
Ali.
I mean, these are stories that very few people get to experience and do, and then in such a humble way as well. Like, I mean, just a crazy way to grow up where you're growing up where this is kind of normal and you almost have to pinch yourself all the time. There you go. Are you still? So
I,
we
I,
may have broken up there a
I
little bit on
apologize,
the.
Chris.
Yeah. So I mean, you're growing up in a way where you kind of have to pinch yourself, and this feels very normal. But during the time, do you realize how kind of unique it is?
At the moment, no. When I was in my teens and early 20s, yes. Whenever we
Yeah.
did Super Bowls and like people would call him everywhere to
Hmm.
come over and talk, I saw how beloved he was, and I'm like, wow, my dad's kind of like a rock star. I never realized that was the
Yeah.
case. And it really made me appreciate him because he was humble as well.
Hmm.
Had that smile that can light up a room, and I would just watch in awe and see like all the love that people had for him that he had for other famous people. Um, so it didn't hit me until I was in my teens and my 20s how famous he was in his own world, but he never bragged about that.
There you go.
Beautiful.
And I imagine you, when you were doing the book and writing it, you were going through his stuff, his, the journey of his life,
Yeah.
some of his possessions, belongings, writings, things like that. What was it like to try to unpack his life and pack it back up? I guess.
The chapters I wrote, the odd number chapters, were easy because that was my real life experiences with him from 2020 on, and I have some flashbacks in there as well. What was hard was, Papa, cover your ears, please. Don't listen to this. I didn't read many of his books. I read a couple. So
Mhm.
when I was writing this book, I had to read his books to find out how I condense a book down to 8 to 10 pages per chapter
Wow.
because that's hard. So
Mhm.
that was the hardest thing, just finding out what I wanted to say. And obviously they're his words, so I would just highlight them. So when it came time
Mhm.
to transcribe them, that was easy. But the longest thing I had to do was read each book before I can
There you
write
go.
in 8 to 10 pages.
It's just a beautiful homage to your father. What do you hope people come away with when they read the book?
Um, Well, hopefully they had a parent figure, could be father or mother, that had this bond like I did with my father.
Hmm.
Everybody marveled at the bond that we had. It was awesome, like any other, greater than any other father and son, people say. But it's also a story about love between two people. So what I'd like people to come away with this is like it could be a husband and a wife, whatever I said before, children or lovers, whatever. But just respect people while they're still here. Pay
Hmm.
homage to them in real life. Funerals mean nothing. That's bad, but the soul, the spirit is gone. So while you still have them, the ones that you love the most, spend as much time as you can. Cherish them. Be with
Hmm.
them. And I made it a point for the last 10 years of my life, and my dad's health issues didn't surface until the last 3 years, that every vacation I took, I went down to Boca Raton, Florida to see my dad. We'd go out to dinner, we'd have drinks, we'd go to the beach, and it was wonderful. But I knew
Hmm.
that at that point he was 83 and I didn't have much time with him, even though he looked great. I said, I want to spend every minute I can with my father. I never have time off. So just anybody you love in your life right now, just again, enjoy them while you have them. Cherish them, honor them, love them fully, because one day they won't be around.
That's very true, and that's very that's important. That's important stuff. When my father started having heart attacks and strokes, and it was starting to really get to the point where he was in and out of hospitals. And I went up and I spent time with him, and I basically used a let's settle all business sort of aspect. And so I started talking to him about clearing the decks of any issues that I'd had with him or misunderstandings or disagreements, and making sure that we were all, you know, I talked to him about what I wanted to talk to him about, and I asked him. I said, "Is there anything we need to clear decks with you?" And we settle our business. We settle our problems and kind of apologize to each other. And by the time he went, I felt that we had cleared all the decks and that we were. And in fact, I called my brother and I said, "You really should settle up with Dad and get clearance because once he's gone, you're not going to be able to have those conversations, and maybe someday you'll mature." Clearly, he hasn't.
Yeah, but closure is important, and I'm glad that you got that. I had closure with my dad a long, long time ago. I was blessed that my company let me spend the last 3 months of his life with him every single day because we didn't think he was dying at first. We thought it was just the effects of the radiation and chemo.
Hmm.
And I was blessed to be lying in his bed with him, holding him on the night before he died in the morning. And
Wow.
yeah, it was emotional. I don't want to go into that right now, or I might start tearing up on you. And we're trying to have fun here.
It's okay.
Yeah, but I mean, it's important to have closure with anybody that you have a disagreement with in the past. It's so true. And I'm glad that you found closure with your father.
Yeah, and I highly recommend people do that. There's some people that believe in afterlife, and they're like, "Well, I'll square things then," and I'm like, "No, you should probably do it before, just in case you're wrong." And it does help.
Because nobody knows, Chris. You might be wrong. Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows. But it's the rest of your life will be a lot cleaner if you clear it up. So that's my policy. I'm sticking to it. Well, it's been wonderful to have you on. Give us the final pitch out to people to order up the book, David, and find out more.
Sure, it's a great journey for anybody who wants to read it. There's some great history in there with sports and celebrities that my dad met, and with myself as well in pro wrestling. But again, it's also a love story between two people that really cared about each other, and it was genuine. And I guess, Chris, man, I'm going to repeat myself, but again, just if there's somebody in your life that you love dearly, don't make excuses not to go see them. Be with them as much as you can. It's important. You'll have regrets. I'm sad my dad is gone. Very sad, but I have no regrets. I never spent enough time with him, and that we didn't have the greatest, life, especially the last 10 years together.
Mm-hmm.
It's important. So I guess that's what I want people to take away with this book. And again, it's not just about my father and me. You can identify anybody in the story I'm telling about myself and my father.
Mm-hmm.
Just, live life every day the fullest and love everyone the fullest. Don't hold back.
There
Don't
you
say
go.
things when you're at a funeral that you want to tell people when you didn't tell them in real life. Tell them in real life. That's why I don't do funerals. Because I've made peace and I've given my homage in real life. I don't do it when somebody's in a casket.
That's true. You got to do it when they're alive and capture those moments and appreciate people. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's one of those things where you don't know what you have until you don't have it, and it can make all the difference. So thank you very much for coming to the show. We really appreciate it, David, and sharing this wonderful story of your father.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a pleasure. I really mean that.
There you go.
Cracking me up so much before we got on air, dude. Thank you for that. I needed that.
That's what we do on the show. We have some laughs, and if we're not stupid, we're funny, and if we're not funny, we're stupid, or vice versa, or sometimes we just suck. So there's that sometimes too.
I'm gonna say today. I don't know. I'll watch it back later on YouTube. I'll find it somewhere. Yeah.
There you go. Well, I offended half my family, so it'll probably be funnier after when I get when I get hate mail.
I didn't his books either, so he might have heard some now.
There you go. There you go. Such an amazing story and amazing life, my friend. Thank you for sharing it. Give us any .coms or social media you want people to go to find out more about you.
Sure. I'm on Facebook, David Sahadi. I'm on Instagram. I use that the most. It's Sahadi3, I believe, on Instagram. You can just Google my name, David Sahadi, and find my social media accounts right there.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you, David, for coming to the show.
Amazon.com. Everybody wants to purchase it. Amazon.com. Put in my name on search or the title of the book, and you'll find it right there.
There you go. And there'll be a link for it on the Chris Voss Show as well.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, Chris.
There you go. Order up the book, folks, wherever fine books are sold, called My Dad, My Dying Son, a true story of love and legends, definitely inspiring, and maybe it'll help you appreciate your dad some more or the relationship you had with him. Thanks so much for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss. Chris Voss, one of the TikTok and all those crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.